Everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Alder Hour, your favorite way to end the working day. I'm Matt Alder. I host the Recruiting Future podcast, and I also host the Alder Hour. This show is part of the Purple Acorn Network. So head over to Purple Acorn Network after the show if you want to learn more, or even better, follow Purple Acorn on LinkedIn and find out more about all the other great shows that they bring to us. Bring to us? It's been a long day. Okay, so this episode is also available as a podcast wherever you get your quality podcasts. As you can tell, this is 100% live tonight. So please join in the comments and we will endeavor to read them out as we go through the show. We have got an absolutely packed show coming up for you over the next 60 minutes. So really looking forward to all the conversations that we are going to have on some really, really important topics. But before we get into that, it's the right time to say a big hello to my co-host, Rhona. Hi, Rhona. How are you doing?
Hey, Matt. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm all right. I feel like I've had a very long day. My brain is running slightly slower than slightly slower than my mouth at the moment. So I'm just trying to catch up. How's your day? What have you been up to?
Well, I'm pretty much starting my work day at this point because I start later. But yeah, I've been just grocery shopping. Very fun. Morning is what I've been doing.
Absolutely. So the Scottish autumn is here. So it's been pitch black outside since about 3:00 this afternoon. But we're having very unseasonably high temperatures, which is kind of a bit strange. So it's warm, but it's still dark. Anyway, so what do you have for us for the show this week?
So I'm talking about retail burnout and how technology may, or will solve it. So
Fantastic. We've also got the monthly return of Talk Nerdy with the legend that is Trent Cotton. So looking forward to that later, and two great guests as well. So it is all happening on the show tonight. So let's move into our first section, which is Points and Pints. Okay, so if you haven't watched the show, if you've not watched the show for a while, what we do in this particular segment is we look at a couple of headlines that we've spotted in the news this week. But while we're doing that, we imbibe a beverage of our choice. So if you were watching or listening to the show last week, you'll remember I had a horrendous experience with a non-alcoholic gin and tonic, which was probably one of the most disgusting things I've ever drunk. So our sponsorship contract with Gordon's Gin is out the window. So because of that, this week I am playing it ultra safe, and I have I found one of these in the cupboard, which is the Guinness Zero, which is the alcohol-free Guinness, and this is the finest non-alcoholic beverage that you can pretending to be alcoholic beverage, if you know what I mean, that you can buy. So I'm looking forward to drinking that one in a minute. Rhona, what do you have? What have you brought for us this week?
I think I might be having an experience like yours last week, but this is technically not a replacement for an alcoholic beverage, but I forgot to chill the one that I did get. So I'm having a coconut smoothie from Trader Joe's. And the reason why I got it is because every 2 or 3 TikToks, I'm getting someone saying how good it is, but it's usually how much their kids like it. So I don't think I'm going to like it, but we'll see. I
Well,
love
we'll
all
see. I
things
think,
coconut.
yeah, I think in the same way that I'm never going to be sponsored by Gordon's Gin, I mean, Trader Joe's are missing a massive opportunity by not just sending you their stuff for free, because it seems to be the only place you buy drinks from. But
Yes.
anyway, let's go. So here comes my Guinness, which I know I'm already going to like. So I'm going to there we are. Just we can do a bit of an iconic sort of pour here. It's supposed to kind of leave it to settle and all that sort of stuff, but there's no time for that tonight. So let's just do some of that. I'll leave that for a second. It's as good as ever. How's the coconut smoothie?
Not good.
Absolutely and
not
just like
good.
that, the sponsorship contract goes up into flames. Do better, Trader Joe's. Do better. Anyway, let's enough of this nonsense. Let's move on to our first article. Redefining the American dream. Why 2 in 5 Gen Zers are choosing blue college careers over college degrees. Really interesting. The article's talking all about the fact that a significant proportion of Gen Z are actually looking towards blue collar careers. They're not going to college in the traditional way. Vocation and trade program enrollments are soaring, and this is becoming a kind of a really important career path for people. So ultimately, it's not surprising. I think any time that there's been a kind of a major, major problems with the economy, there's always a kind of shift, and people, tend to sort of look for, look for jobs that are sort of a safer bet in rough economic times. But I think there's something more systematic going on here. So the article talks about the rising cost of college, but also behind all of this there's the threat of going to college, training to do a job, and AI taking it away. So I don't think this is particularly surprising. I think it's fantastic that people are thinking about their future in such a structured way. Rhona, what's your take on this? What do you think is driving this?
I mean, I agree with a lot in the article. I mean, at the end of the day, the ROI isn't there for decades. Everyone saw, or Gen Z can see how millennials and Gen Xers, we were told, go to college, do this, and you'll be set for life. We did it, and a lot of people have student debt, no jobs, loyalty from employers, all of that stuff. So I see why they're doing it. I also think, just in general, Gen Z is not that, and this is in a good way, they're not that like focused on work being the main thing in their life. So they're not spending all this time. They want the quickest path. Look, this is just what I do to get money. Yes, you get the training, you do this thing and move on. At the end of the day, both blue collar jobs, white collar jobs, all jobs are really on the line for AI taking them, if you
Yeah,
ask me.
yeah.
So I think if I were in their shoes, I would also be taking the fastest path to just getting money, paying for your life, and doing the other things that you wanna do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting when you said that AI is potentially coming for everyone's job, because I've been reading all day about the advances in robotics and all of this kind of stuff. So we live in a very uncertain world. What I think is interesting though is there is so much talk this year about a reduction in post college entry level jobs, which may or may not be true. It's interesting in terms of what data that you look at, but also, AI kind of work, wiping out all these knowledge workers in the future and all of this kind of stuff. And what tends to happen is when you get, hype and headlines like this, it does affect the decisions that people make about their career. And sometimes we don't feel the ramifications of that for several years. So what I'm wondering is, companies who want to recruit college graduates, who want to have entry worker, knowledge worker jobs, or want to have humans working for them in 10 or 15 years time, are we cutting off the pipeline at this stage? And I think it's something kind of worth thinking about, whether what happens further down the line. What do you think? Am I reaching there, or is that
No, I mean, it is something to consider, but we could also look at it and think, is this an opportunity for companies to really step up and do the training that is relevant specifically for them, and not be relying on like whatever someone learned in college or whatever, just like double down on the training that you have in your company for the specific jobs, for the specific tasks that you have. That's also a way to look at it. Like, are we shifting the education to a different institution?
Yeah, I think again, that's a great point. And I think we were talking about that. Was it last week or the week before? We were sort of having that conversation about employers and education and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I think what I would say is there's obviously a lot of confusion, a lot of conflicting evidence out there, and I would hope that we could probably get a little bit more clarity about about where careers are heading for the young people leaving school or leaving college, and I think it's it's all very well saying, well, we don't know what's going to happen. But if you're in that position and you're kind of planning what you're going to do with your career, then, you need some kind of guidance that's based in some kind of form of reality. So I think this is this is a huge issue that I think we'll come back to time and time again, effectively.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Well, let's look at the second article. Okay, so the HR tech journey for 2026, from fragmentation to orchestration. Now, the first thing I'll say about this article is it's very fragmented. It was quite difficult to understand what it was actually about, because it kind of went, it sort of covers about 6 topics all at once. But what I took from it, it's about the HR tech market in the Middle East and APAC, but actually everything it talks about could apply, pretty much everywhere else in the world, as well. The sort of key points about this is it's really sort of talking about fragmentation. So people having, fragmented tech stacks, lots of different types of technology, not being able to decide whether they have a single HR suite that provides them what they want, or they're looking at specialist providers or local providers or all that kind of stuff. But what I really took from it is that the pace of development and change in the HR tech industry is very much outpacing the speed of innovation within employers and more critically adoption within employers. And it's kind of helping to sort of contribute to this kind of fragmented nature of what's going on. And there was a big bit in there about employers finding it hard to justify the ROI for HR tech investments, and the article comes to some conclusions about that, which I can sort of mention in a minute. But Rhona, what did you think, or what's your take on this one?
It's interesting. I was talking to you before we went on, and I should have a stronger opinion on this, being that literally my career, what I studied was information systems engineering. I mean, yes, 100% agree. We should have a system. It shouldn't be fragmented. The reason why it's fragmented is because every function within HR is just buying the software that they need to do their job. So 2 ways of doing this. We've talked about it before, kind of hinted at it. Should CHROs, should their skill sets, should their knowledge be a little beyond HR and be more on the tech side, more on the systems thinking side, or should we have a totally new function? And I'm not going to call it new, because there's parts of this already that exist as far as people ops and things like that. But should there be a centralized function within HR that's overseeing the whole system and making sure that everything that you're buying is working together? Because we're definitely not going to get it from the HR tech vendors, because this is unique to every company. I think that's just the opinion that I have.
Yeah, I think that's. I think that's a very valid opinion. I think it makes perfect sense, and it kind of really highlights some of the issues here. And I think the other issue was also about the strategy that sits behind this. So, I really like the sort of the final bit of this article where it said that HR should not be positioning itself as a buyer of software, but an orchestrator of digital culture that shapes how people and processes and platforms interact. So really taking that strategic view over and above the software implementation to say, well, actually, what is it that we're trying to do with this, and how do we get there? And that's where the ROI comes from. So fragmented article, but it does bring up some really interesting points. And I think this whole concept of fragmentation, I think it's something that we're going to talk about a lot in 2026. There we are now making predictions for 2026 in terms of what we're going to talk about, not in terms of what's going to happen. Also, I'd just like to say thank you, Evan White, for noticing my new haircut, which I had done this morning, which he's just put in the comments. So I'm glad to see it's I'm glad to see it's noticeable, or maybe it was just how bad my hair was before. But anyway, so thank you, Rhona. Looking forward to talking to you again later in the show. But it is time for Talk Nerdy with iCIMS, and a big hello to Trent Colton.
Hello. I am really upset that I was not invited to the first part of this conversation because I was over here like I've got data, but that's okay. I'll just make sure that you do it offline. Welcome to the Talk Nerdy with iCIMS segment. I am your host Trent Cotton, and today I am bringing on stage Evelyn with Nucleus Research, and we're going to get into some AI adoption data. So, welcome to the show, Evelyn.
Thank you for having me, Trent. Happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. And it's so cool whenever I talk to people like you and other analysts so often, and then we talk on stage. It's kind of weird. So I'm going to
I
try and
know.
keep it very nice and professional. So you gave me some really interesting insights into some recent research that you did. So just going to let you set it up. What is the research? Who was surveyed? What was the size of the firms, the industries? All this stuff I always ask you, but now we're doing it on camera.
Yeah. So basically, my mission was to solve what is the $1 million question. All of this AI innovation is coming out, but who's actually using it? How are they using it? And part of my job, I should probably back up and give you a little bit of background on my firm. I'm a research manager at Nucleus Research. We're an independent analyst firm, and we are focused solely on return on investment analysis. So, another $1 million question right there is how are organizations driving value from using AI? So, part of this is having a lot of conversations day in and day out with customers, trying to gauge the value of their technology investments. But a big part of that I wanted to solve for was figuring out what AI adoption looked like, specifically in talent, because I think it's an area where AI has a lot of potential, both good and bad. And I wanted to see, if there were people that were lagging behind. Why are they lagging behind? What are their fears? What are their apprehensions? And for those using it, how are they using it day to day, and what kind of value are they getting from that? So basically, I spoke with talent leaders at around 36 companies, either using point talent solutions or modules within a broader HCM system. I'd say it was a good mix in terms of industries and sizes. We had organizations with less than 10 employees, and then we had organizations with more than 94,000 employees.
Oh, wow.
Some of the industries we highlighted were higher education, professional services, hospitality, retail, public sector, healthcare, the usual suspects, right? And it was probably skewed more North American, but we did have some European companies in there as well. But I do want to note that we wanted to kind of stray from the traditional survey path and make it conversation based, because you get more quality over quantity in the answers, and you're able to capture more nuance. So beyond someone saying, yes, I'm interested, but I'm not using it, or no, I'm not interested, but I'm being forced to use it, I'm nosy and I want to know why. I want to know why they are using it, what they're excited about, and more importantly, what's keeping them up at night.
Well, and as someone, whenever I was a practitioner, I have been on the other side of those conversations with you, and you do get you get into the nitty gritty.
Oh, yeah.
I think the last time you did it on me, I was actually asking myself a lot of questions, like, why do I believe that? So you're great at what you do, but for me, what's fascinating, anytime that I go into any kind of a research, always start. You're not supposed to, but you always kind of start with a preconceived idea or what you're expecting to find. Did that happen to you? And two, if it did, were there any surprises in this research?
It absolutely happened to me. So there were two main things that surprised me. The first, and I have to preface this by saying I'm a massive contrarian. I'm that person that ruins everyone's good time. If they love a movie, I'm like, I didn't like it. But I expected readiness and adoption to be so much lower across the board than it actually
Really?
turned out to be, because the conversations I was having earlier in the year, I mentioned they're basically ongoing. I wasn't getting much. I was saying, it's interesting, but we don't see a use for it right now, and we need to get our AI policies in order. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, that's something that we can check back next year, and maybe there will be some movement. But for me to check in, 5-6 months later and see such great waves in adoption, it was really an interesting thing to see. But particularly, I was surprised to see a lot of candidate skill matching and resume parsing continue to be a popular use. One company I talked to had said they were using skill matching to basically give them the 60% of applicants that actually had the skills and certifications that matched the job description. In this case, they were in education. They had very granular certifications that they needed to check that box. Another company was a huge construction company, very high volume hiring. They were using AI to schedule 70% of their interviews. So I think, despite my cynicism, there's so much busy work that can be replaced with use cases like this. And I think that talent despite the risk, is a prime area for these kinds of tools because there's no shortage of things for recruiters to do. I like to call it the recruiter minutia. It's all those little ticky-tacky tasks that get in the way of doing more meaningful work. But basically, the second thing that surprised me is if there were to be an adoption uptick, I really expected it to be from large public companies that had boards to answer to, or organizations and industries that are not as highly regulated. So no public sector, no higher education. I didn't think about how sometimes regulated industries actually have an advantage for these kinds of innovations because they are so structured in their governance and policies. And then for smaller companies, they need that force multiplier that AI brings because they have smaller teams. And because of that, they can be more agile in deploying AI. There's less effort needed to get everyone up to speed. So
Interesting.
all that to say, it was a mixed bag. If you had asked me what didn't surprise me, it's that European companies are probably still pretty behind. And of course, there's a whole
I
host
was
of
going to say,
reasons for that.
yeah, the big EU AI
Yes.
eradicator that's out there, also called
Yeah.
a law. And, I love that recruiting minutia. Minutia. Yeah, that's a lot more diplomatic than what I used to call it as a practitioner. So I'm gonna I'm gonna take that to the bank.
Go for it.
So if you were to give some advice based off of this, someone that's listening there, let's just say they're kind of either just starting or in the midst of trying to figure out what they're going to do in terms of leveraging AI, based off of the adoption data, what would be like maybe one or two pieces of advice that you'd give them?
Yeah, so the two biggest themes that I got basically from every conversation that I had is that there are two things that we need to be looking at. One, it's risk, and two, it's applicability. Does it make sense? Are you putting a shiny object in there just because it's cool and it looked great on a demo, but it really has no use case within your organization?
Evelyn, can you say it louder for the back?
I can say it again. Applicability, guys. I live in Florida. I have heated seats. They're great to have. I don't need them. You can think the same way with technology. And, I think the other thing is making sure that, once again, you're not looking at the features, you're looking at the outcomes. You want to take a close look at where your headaches actually are and what can feasibly solve them. You want to make sure that you have a clear policy to make sure that we don't mess AI up, because as we've seen in the news, there have been examples. Let me see. We want to make sure we're working with our vendors to ensure full accountability. We want to have some understanding of how the technology is working on the back end. And I do have to give some credit to vendors. I think that they have been doing a bit more work in terms of customer education and explainability. And I want to say that's part of the product of what I found through these interviews. And the shift that I've seen.
Yeah, I think you and I may have talked about it at one point that I shifted my talk track. Anytime that I was on stage or doing a webinar talking about AI, I always start with the same screen. Here are the three different definitions of AI. One's not really AI, but it gets called AI.
Yes.
You have automation, you have Gen AI, and you have agentic. Here's what each one of them does. So now that we have a baseline of definition, now we can start talking about what the future looks like. And I think that that's important for anyone, is to make sure that you're understanding, because sometimes what you need is not agentic AI, which is
Right.
do this like me, do this with me. And if I tell you to do this for me, that's really advanced. You just may need a very strong, sophisticated automation. So AI does not solve every problem, but first identifying the problem tells you which tool you need. And I love that about the heated seats. That was a great analogy. That was right on the spot too. I'm impressed.
Oh, thank you.
You're swinging it out of the park.
I try.
Yeah. Well, one of the pieces that really jumped out to me, and this is a very popular term that's being used now, the human in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you mentioned in there, and don't quote me, but it said something along the lines of it's no longer enough just to reassure talent leaders that, hey, there's a human in the loop. Can you unpack that a little bit? Because it does get into the risk.
Yeah, so I think first off, like I had said, we now have examples of how AI and talent has gone bad, regardless of whether or not there was a human in the loop. And then we're also seeing layoffs at the same time, where employers are finally saying the quiet part out loud, right? It's, we're becoming more agile because of AI, or what we hope to achieve through AI, so reducing force. For me, I think it's been overused now. it made sense at the start when, okay, you're generating a job description, make sure someone looks at it and we're not, adding some egregious information before posting it. But now it seems like more of a defense, something to throw out there because everyone else is saying it. And now that we have agentic AI coming out, and hopefully, people are gaining a better understanding of the differences between the different types of AI. And to your point, Trent, I think sometimes a decision tree is okay if that's what meets your needs.
Yeah.
But human in the loop is becoming more disingenuous as agentic AI comes out, because how are we going to say that a human can remain fully within a complex end-to-end automation of a process, in some cases across multiple systems? It's a total oxymoron.
Yeah. And then all you're doing is just creating more human work that you just created.
The workarounds,
yeah. You
we
created
reinvent
new
the
work
wheel.
by solving for old work. It's like, I know
Absolutely.
Rhona and Matt were talking about it earlier about HR systems. A lot of the problems that we're trying to fix today, our chief product officer says this all the time. A lot of the problems that we're trying to fix today in HR tech is stuff that we created 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We were making the system a lot more sophisticated, but also complicated. So, and then, it's funny with the whole AI. I always like to ask HR people, would you put a new employee in place without onboarding them, without any kind of training, and not have a performance assessment at any point during the year? And the answer is like, absolutely not. Then
Right.
why would you not do the same thing for AI? Like, treat it like an employee.
Right.
All right, so let's bring it home. What is the most powerful shift that you've seen talent leaders and how they think about AI and its role in their strategy, especially since now it's crazy, we're looking at 2026. I don't know where this year went, but I'm okay with it.
The biggest shift that I've seen, well, I feel for talent leaders, first of all, because I think they've been the most inundated with the shiny objects for the past 2, 3, 4 years. I can barely keep track at this point. I can't believe it's about to be 2026 either. But I've seen, total inertia in many cases, and analysis paralysis, having so many options and so many people telling you what the right thing to do is, that they weren't looking at what the outcomes are, where the headaches were, what can actually help, developing those policies, all the things that I'd mentioned beforehand. But I think overall it's that the HR technology and the talent buyer is becoming much savvier, and they just have to use those guiding principles. I think that you have to look at the risk and you have to look at if it actually makes sense to implement, if it's actually applicable. And something that I've learned, which is interesting, is based on the conversations I had an idea that, just because a company is large and highly regulated, that it can only use certain things, or it's going to go very low on its AI use. But things like risk profile and relative applicability is going to look different for every organization at the end of the day, regardless of the box that we want to put them in based on size or industry.
I love it. All right. So just in summary, 1, have your governance in place. 2, stop using the term human in the loop. And 3, don't get heated seats when you live in South Florida, right?
Don't do it. You will burn your thighs.
Absolutely. Well, South Florida is one of my favorite places. So, Evelyn, thank you. Every time I talk to you, I always learn something new, and I hope the audience got as much out of this as I did. And if they want to connect with you and get the research, can you walk them through how to do that?
Yes, I absolutely can. So any piece of research you ever want to look at, feel free to just shoot me an email. I am McMullen, so first initial last name, @nucleusresearch.com. And at the time we are recording this, the report is not yet live. Trent got an advanced copy, but it should be out within the next week. So I don't know. I'm happy to share a copy with whoever can disseminate that. But
awesome.
Yeah, otherwise just nucleusresearch.com. And if there's something you want to read, shoot me an email or add me on LinkedIn.
I love it. And Evelyn, thank you for making me feel better about being shut out of the previous segment.
Oh, you're so welcome.
With Rhona and Matt. Now I feel like I got something that they didn't get. So
yes,
thank you for coming on.
Thank
All right,
you so
Matt, Rhona, I will kick it back to you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Trent. And just to say that the iCIMS do have data on the graduating class of 2025, and Trent has put a link to that in the comments just to make sure we kind of close the loop on that. Great interview, really, really interesting to watch. Anyway, on to our other guest for this evening. Hi, Ali. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, Matt. Thank you very much for having me on.
Now,
I'm doing well.
a big thank you for coming, because it is very, very late where you are. It's kind of like 8:30 where I am, but I think it's midnight where you are.
It is, yeah.
So just introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do.
Okay, so I actually started looking into the recruitment space sometime back in 2021, 2022, and I was a professor of computing and AI here at Rochester Institute of Technology. And I've been in this role for almost 10 years. I had about 2 or 3 cohorts of students graduate under me. And I think it sort of started to hit me when students who had been graduating, I would say, were the bright sparks in my classroom. Amazing students were coming back and just telling me that, look, we're struggling to find a job. So after listening to a couple of these concerns, I started to reach out to people in the industry. Obviously, I'd been a hiring manager. I had worked for Motorola for 15 years before I became a professor, and I knew what are the kind of challenges, but I just wanted to sort of see what's happening in the recruitment industry. So I spent a lot of time talking to people in the HR space, talent acquisition specialists, recruiters. And what I began to realize is that in the market that we are in here in Dubai, and the way recruitment is actually happening, it's completely broken, right? Because you can advertise a role here, and I mean, we are doing that now. Within 24 hours, we will get over 1,000 CVs come in, right? And you're really now searching for a needle in a haystack. It's absolutely impossible to find to find the right talent, and to be able to sift through all this and be able to assess with any level of objectivity. So that's when I decided that, okay, all the sort of algorithms and the stuff that I had been developing as a professor to evaluate my students, this is something that maybe we could bring into the world of recruitment and try it out. But obviously, if I had to do it seriously, I couldn't give my full attention to the world of academia and also this. So I decided to sort of hang my coat and move into the world of entrepreneurship. And I think I got hit with my first very challenge, because as soon as I had sent in my resignation and I decided to retire, my department chair said to me, "Can you help us hire your replacement?" I said, "Yeah, I'll help you, no problem." And then he comes back to me 2 weeks later and says, "Where's your help?" I said, "What do you want me to do?" He says, "Well, we have some CVs on Google Drive. Can you have a look at them?" And I go onto Google Drive, and there's 500 CVs there. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to go through 500 CVs. I'm retired. I need to move on with life. And that's when I thought, right, this is the best moment. Let me see if I can maybe repurpose some of the stuff that I've done in the world of student evaluation in terms of the reports, and bring that into this space. So I think I spent about 18 hours doing that and put the CVs through the system. And after maybe about 10 minutes, it gave me 3 CVs, which when I read, I actually felt, you know what, this is like I'm reading about myself. This is so precise and accurate. So I forwarded the CVs onto the department chair, and they interviewed those candidates, and they actually ended up hiring 2. So instead of 1 person, they ended up hiring 2. And that sort of gave me that, I would say, confidence that, you know what, there's a lot that can be done in this space. So eventually went into the world of recruitment, started to showcase some of the capabilities that I thought recruiters would absolutely love. And they'll be like, oh, you know what? Thank God somebody has built something that is really going to be useful and meaningful. But I think the reaction was the complete opposite, 180 degrees. It was like, oh my God, you guys, you techies are going to take over our jobs, and we're going to be left without any jobs. And all these kind of concerns started to come up. And I think, I just heard the previous segment about human in the loop. And, I think there's a lot of stuff that can be said about that, especially when we talk about recruitment tech.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to kind of dig into. There's so much to kind of dig into there, and I want to talk about the recruitment and the human bit, definitely. But before we do though, how do you fix it? How do you fix those issues with recruitment? So there's the volume issue, but also making sure that the people with most potential kind of shine through. What's your kind of solution to that?
So the approach that I actually used was the same sort of evaluation method that I use for my students, right? Where we actually define very clear rubrics in terms of how we want to evaluate the work of the students. And these rubrics are actually used when a CV comes in. So you can have 1,000 CVs coming in. The idea is you want to be objective, right, and not subjective, and you want to make sure that there's no human bias coming in, and everyone is sort of measured using the same ruler. So for that, as a when you're working in the world of academia, you need to have very clear rubrics predefined. So the way I looked at it was, if we speak to the hiring managers and we understand from them what exactly is it that you're looking for, what is going to qualify the person, what is going to make a person really stand out, right? Those are the inputs that sort of go into the AI capability that we have. And our platform will then generate the rubrics based on that. So a job description that a candidate is going to see is going to sort of provide a very succinct description of what we're looking for, the requirements, and the desirable skills. But what we realized is, the way my students were, if I told them exactly how I'm going to evaluate them line by line, they're not going to do anything more than that. That's it. That's all they're going to do. So what we do is we make sure that the rubrics is something that the candidates don't actually see, right? They see the job description, they see the requirements, they see the desirable skills. If they want to update their CVs, great. In fact, I would absolutely love it if people read job descriptions and update their CVs, which they don't do most of the time. But once those come in, we're able to evaluate in a very objective way. And I think that is what has helped us really crack this. So you can have thousands of people apply for a single role, but then you have the AI making an objective assessment, giving a score for each one of those checkpoints that we are interested in. And the score is based on evidence that is actually found in the CV, not on keywords that the person could have thought of.
Yeah, I mean that makes that kind of makes a lot of sense in terms of consistency, and it sounds like there's a level of transparency about that as well.
Absolutely. And it's explainable. So if anyone wants to audit and say, right, how did you guys actually end up making this decision? There is a whole audit trail. You can actually see how the AI evaluated the job description, how it came up with the rubrics, and obviously keeping the recruiter in the loop to make sure that this is exactly what the hiring manager is looking for.
Yeah, and that was kind of my next question, is like, how do you see the role of human recruiters evolving, or kind of just kind of fitting in or not fitting in with the technology that we're kind of seeing exploding all over the world?
So I think my view is that the human element is very important, right? I think the most AI can do for us in the space of recruitment. So I've been now in this space for almost 3 years, right? I'm actually a recruiter myself. I spend a lot of time with candidates talking to them. The best that I'm getting out of the system that we have is that it helps do all the heavy lifting, right, in terms of evaluating the CVs with a high level of precision and accuracy. But then that engagement that you have with the candidate to understand whether this person is really the right fit. And I think a lot of the times there's a thought in our mind that, is this person the right fit for this role? But then when you have that conversation, you also find out that, is this role really the right fit for this person in their career, right? And is this person really going to be successful, or are they going to sort of fall over after 3 or 6 months, right? So I think humans are definitely not going to be ruled out. I think they have a very important part to play in the recruitment journey.
And what about sort of trust from the candidate side? Because what I'm seeing a lot of is there are some tremendous AI focused solutions out there that do genuinely solve a lot of the issues that we have with recruitment, but there does seem to be a level of distrust amongst candidates in terms of computers making decisions, or not being able to talk to a person, or whatever it is. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, how do we kind of build that trust? What are you seeing from the candidates that you're working with?
So I think the most important thing is making sure that the candidates actually are able to build trust, right? So the way we've done it is we make sure that we give feedback to every candidate. So we can have over 1,000 people apply for a role. And the way we've designed our system is every single candidate is going to get feedback, right? Now, the kind of feedback we give is not like, oh, thank you for applying for this role, but we're not going to move forward with your application. What we do is we acknowledge, and this has been very important for me as a professor, making sure that I give feedback to my students, and that's what we did here. So we acknowledge their application. We then start off by telling them what we found great in their CV. We then give them a gap analysis to try to make them understand what we were looking for and what we could not find, and make sure that they can tally that with the job description and the requirements. And then we thank them for applying, and sort of give them that reassurance that they're in our system and we'll be able to help them out. Another way that we are working really hard on building that trust with candidates is when I have interview with candidates, I actually share the screen with them, right? I actually show them the AI evaluation, right? And I show them the checkpoints. I let them look at the score, and I let them look at the feedback and the evaluation done. And that actually turns out to be a very good way for us to validate as well. So candidates actually always come back and say, "Oh, wow, that is actually very accurate. Yes, I haven't done that at all. This is." But the good thing then also is the candidates sort of have that aha moment that, "Oh, yes, I have done this, but I didn't update it in my CV." So the feedback has been amazing for us. In fact, if you go to our Google reviews, what you'll see is most of the reviews we're getting are from candidates who are absolutely delighted about the fact that they're getting some meaningful feedback. And I think one thing I would probably also add to that as an experience is we've hired for our clients around 3 or 4 people in the last maybe 12 months who, when they were evaluated by the platform, got a score of 4 out of 10, right? But based on the in-depth evaluation that we do, I saw that there was a particular area that my client was looking for, and this person is getting 10 out of 10 on that. But overall, their score is 4 out of 10. So I called up the candidate and I just said to the candidate, "How could you have done this, but then you don't have all this?" And he said, "Actually, no, I do have all this, but I just couldn't be bothered. So I just sent whatever CV version I had," right? So with this kind of discussion, with this kind of data analytics and insights that we're getting using AI, we're able to engage with these people and give them that opportunity that they really need, right? So I think that's really helping.
Yeah, 100%. It sounds like the kind of the perfect mix of machines and humans, definitely. And where do you think we're going with this? How's it going to develop? What does the future look like? How can how can we have this kind of this kind of thing done at scale as well? What's going to happen next?
Well, I think we're in the best position really for scale, because what we've seen is that when we advertise roles in this region, so whether we're advertising roles in Saudi, in Qatar, in the UAE, in Oman, we get a lot of people that are actually applying. So if we want to test scalability of a platform, this is the best region to test it in. You're going to end up with thousands of CVs. But the one thing that I've seen that is very good is when we launch a job on LinkedIn and the candidates click apply and then they come to the application page, what we have there are screening questions, right? What the screening questions actually do is this kind of give the candidate a hint of what we're going to be evaluating, right? And it's a simple yes or no set of questions, like 5 or 6 questions to say, have you done this? Have you done that? And it sort of gets the candidate to think, oh, yes, I've done it, but have I updated it in my CV? Okay, let me update it in my CV. So it helps us move away a bit from that easy apply thing that we have on LinkedIn, where everyone just keeps, trigger happy, easy apply, easy apply. So what we're seeing is that the volume is definitely coming down. The number of irrelevant CVs we're seeing is definitely coming down. So I think the adoption of these capabilities is going to help really making sure that we are not going to be facing a lot of that avalanche of irrelevant CVs coming in. That's one definite space that I see. The other one is, I think, really giving feedback to people, helping them really get the best of the AI if they've spent the time filling out their application and they really want to know why I have not been selected, right? At least now they're going to have a better insight into that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is probably the most the most important thing moving forward. I've got a quick bonus question actually before I say goodbye. We talk a lot on the show about regulation, what's happening in the EU, what's happening in the US, what's happening with regulation and AI or attitudes to AI in the regions that you're working in.
So I would say the attitude is very positive. There is a lot of there's a very positive approach towards bringing in some of these AI capabilities, and the adoption that trying these new solutions out. There's a lot of companies, and I think this was discussed in the previous segment, where there are a lot of companies that are trying to sell automation as AI, right? So you have people that are seriously overwhelmed with all the different options that are out there. But in terms of regulation, the regulations definitely are something that are, you could say, a little bit flexible for us, in the sense that, it gives us a lot of power to be able to experiment with new capabilities, new ideas. But we are seeing slowly now that part of the procurement processes that companies have, they're looking for, are you compliant with the EU AI Act and so on and so forth. But the key focus really is making sure that it's responsible AI, it's explainable AI. And for us, if anyone comes to us and says, well, you know what, we used your platform, but it's not really helping us, it's not telling us who to hire. We just literally pull the platform off them and say, look, this platform is not to tell you who to hire. It's really there to assist you in hiring the best candidate. You still have to make the decision. If you think AI is going to make the hiring decision for you, then you're in the wrong space.
Fantastic. Ali, thank you very much for talking to us, and I'll leave you to get off to bed now because it's very late where you are. But thank you very much for being on the show.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, it is now time for trending or ending.
So I saw this piece on HR Brew this week about frontline burnout in retail. And honestly, it's rough out there. Holiday season hasn't even peaked, and nearly 70% of retail workers say that they're already exhausted. And like, we're not even in the thick of it, and people are already done. And when you dig into it, it's not just long shifts, it's unpredictable scheduling, short staffing, constant customer interactions, and the mental load of being on all day. And this is where it got interesting for me. The article talked about companies using AI and automation to ease that pressure, such like stuff like smarter scheduling tools that actually factor in employee preferences, or AI assistants that handle all of those questions from customers, like, do you have this in a medium? Where's this located? Questions that make workers want to scream by hour 3. On paper, this sounds like a win, right? Tech takes the grunt work, people focus on the human stuff. But here's what always happens: AI gets rolled out for employees, not with them. And we've talked about this so many times on the show, but really, user adoption and like talking to your employees about what they need is really how you succeed with these things. You can't fix burnout with more dashboards and no listening. You fix burnout with better design, real flexibility, and leaders who treat tech as a support system, not a surveillance tool. And this is the stat that was wild. HR Brew said that 70% of shoppers using AI tools like chatbots, or virtual stylists say that they rely less on in-store staff. So while tech can lighten the load, it can also cut into hours or change roles entirely. And that's really the tightrope that retail is walking this season. And like, it's really going to be on leaders on how they are going to address this and what they're going to do as a result. Personally, I think we're seeing the beginning of an AI assisted frontline, one where scheduling, staffing, and service blend. But whether it's a game changer or just more noise depends on execution. So, Matt, employee facing AI in retail, the kind that actually helps workers instead of just watching them, trending or ending? Because if 70% of workers are already running on fumes, we better figure this out fast.
Yeah, well, let's hope it's trending. I think just on that burnout thing, particularly during the holiday season, I don't know what it's like where you are, but come probably maybe even today, but this week, all of the shops start playing Christmas music until the end of the year, and I could not work in an environment where you just hear the same music all the time. So I think there's just so much that so much that can affect people who have those jobs at this time of year. But yeah, I think you make some really interesting points there. I think the key thing to me is that technology has to assist people, not give them more to do. And I think that very often you find that companies will put technologies in, and then people are then the slaves to another system, or they have to change the processes that make it more difficult for them, because in that kind of glorious centralized point, it looks like it might make it easier, or it makes it easier to collect data or manage people or whatever it is. So I'm very much kind of in favor of that kind of user first approach to it. And looking at the article, it was talking about using AI around shift patterns, but also just to give people just to level the playing field with information in terms of the products that they're selling, because people are coming in store armed with all of this data and research that they've done, and it seems ridiculous that the people kind of selling these products don't have similar tools to get that information, or are very reliant on really slow, antiquated systems. So yes, I mean, I think that I don't think AI is going to solve all these burnout problems, but I think implementing it properly could and should make a massive difference.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I always feel bad. I'm the type of person that always feels bad asking retail employees about like all of my questions, because I'm sure I've researched more than them on some of the products that I'm trying to buy, because they're at a store with thousands of products. They don't know about each and every one of them. So definitely having something that can help with that, like on the to lighten their load, and then smart scheduling, because I've never worked in retail, but everyone that I know that has is always talking about the scheduling and what a nightmare it is. So like using it correctly, I just want us to not go way the other way and then start replacing or like reducing the amount of employees because AI is fixing it. That's the only concern where it's like we really need to look into this, but yeah, 100% we should be relying on this more. This is a great use case for AI.
Yeah, and to pick up that point about we need less employees because AI is fixing it, there is a fabulous case study, or fabulous case study in why that's bad, happening probably 5 minutes walk from where I am in my local supermarket, where there was always kind of an automated checkout section and a human checkout section. And what they've done is they've made the automated checkout section bigger, and then they've kind of put this sort of hybrid human assisted automated checkout, and there's now kind of two positions that are fully human. And I was there at lunchtime, looking, trying to look for a beverage for this evening, and the queue for those humans was just enormous, because and very few people actually want to use the automated systems, because I think that retailers need to remember. Obviously, with the supermarket, it's slightly different, but need to remember why people have come into a store in the first place when you can get all of these things online. It might be convenience, but a lot of it is actually wanting to talk to a human, or have a human to deal with. And I think looking at the queuing debacle that's now going on in that store, that really kind of brought it home to me that actually people actually quite like having a chat to a human while they're while they're buying their shopping. And I think if you're you come in with your research, you want to buy something, something's in store, you're doing it because you want to have that kind of human connection, get that extra bit of advice. And I think that retailers and employers really need to bear that in mind when they're automating or using AI for anything in their store. And I think that that's just a really, really important thing.
Yes. And I this might be a hot take. I don't know. My friends don't like when I say this, but everyone shouldn't be using the self-help, self-checkout and automated things, because some people just don't know how to do it. So I'm a big advocate for, yes, we need humans, because some people just they just can't do it. So they need the humans to take them. And that's also why I'm such a big fan of places like Trader Joe's. You know, all of my drinks are from there. It's because they don't have self-checkout. You
Yeah.
talk to a human. You like it's just a totally different experience. And a lot of people are craving that. And like you said, if I want something, if I didn't like when I'm at a store buying something, there's a reason why I'm there. I want to talk to someone because otherwise it's in my hand. I can order anything online, literally, and it'll be here same day, next day, at most 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. Your humans are your market differentiator. So give them the right tools to be even more human and to have even more conversations and not be burnt out. I think that is our holiday message to all of the all of the
And
kind of
don't
frontline
start
employers out
playing the Christmas music. I went to a store that was playing it in October, and
there.
yeah, maybe I'm the Grinch or whatever, but I don't wanna hear Christmas music in October, like, let's
No,
wait.
exactly. Christmas music is for Christmas. But there's a whole nother. We'll save that for our Christmas edition in a few weeks' time. So yeah. So anyway, I hope it's trending. I think you probably hope it's trending. You definitely hope it's
Yes,
trending as well.
yes.
Thank you, Rhoda, for bringing that to us, and that brings us to the end of yet another show. So, thank you to everyone who's been involved in the show tonight. So, thank you to Rhona, thank you to Trent, thank you to our two amazing guests, thank you to Alan, our long-suffering producer, for as ever holding us all together. There are a ton of other great shows on Purple Acorn that you should absolutely check out. First and foremost, check out Rhona's show, Workfluencer. It's fantastic. You should be really listening to it. Also, the HR Morning Show, From the Desk, My First Job, From X to Z, and many, many, many more. Too many to mention. So go to purpleapronetwork.com and follow them on LinkedIn to get access to all the latest news and all those shows. You can find this show as a podcast on Spotify, on Apple, or anywhere else where you listen to your quality podcasts. You can also find my longer form interviews on Recruiting Future in the same place that you listen to your quality podcasts. And make sure you subscribe to both Recruiting Future, but also the Alder Hour as well. So the Alder Hour will be back next week. I'm already looking forward to it. This is Matt Alder, clocking out.